Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good Monday morning. Good, very cold Monday morning for me from right outside of Washington, D.C., where we got 5 inches of snow yesterday and 3 inches of sleet on top of that. And if you were really lucky, you got a little glaze of frozen rain. So
nice.
Woohoo! I do have power, which is why I'm here today. And with me in the studio, I'm Beth. We have Andy and Brian. We had an interesting weekend. Hey, everybody. Lot of talk about Claude Bot, lot of talk about some other things. I have a Sakana news story just to start us off, and then I'll pop over to Andy or Brian.
I don't know. That's my favorite news story, so please go with it.
Sakana, who we've been talking about forever, because we thought evolutionary model merge was so cool, announced a partnership with Google, and the partnership includes Sakana AI making active use of Google technologies as the Gemini generative AI model in product development. So it's very exciting for Sakana. It's another move toward major frontier lab companies showing highlighting Japan as like a resource or a hub that they want to use. And if we remember, I don't know, a year and a half ago or 10 years or yesterday, the research that came out that said Japan was a huge AI adopter for its size, right? The proportion was really amazing. So congrats to our Sakana pals.
That's right.
If you are in Japan or speak Japanese, look them up. They're hiring. They're looking for people to take advantage of this. So congrats.
Yeah, I'm sure Andy. Yeah, add to it. Go ahead. I have something.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm going to add to it here. So Sakana is the ninja of AI. They're not doing, large scale, model training. What they're doing is finding the clever ways to slice and dice with novelty and innovation. And this is why Google's interested in them, because scaling is kind of reaching a limit of what you can accomplish. And the founder of Sakana, a guy named Leon Jones, was one of the authors of the Attention is All You Need paper, which goes back. So he's like one of the OG AI thought leaders, and he's built Sakana over in Japan. And so there were 8 authors of Attention is All You Need. He's one of them. And I saw a little blurb this morning that only 2 of the original authors are still working for Frontier Labs. All the rest of them have spread out and started their own companies or otherwise are working in different spaces at this point. Okay, so Sakana is not like building bigger, multi-trillion parameter AI models. They're advancing AI technologies with new architectures. And this is why Google's interested in them. And specifically, Demis Hassabis of Google DeepMind was one of the commentators on this combination between Google and Sakana. So yeah, we've always been noting Sakana as this out of the box thinker that's doing things that you wouldn't expect, not following the pack, but rather really cutting through and doing some interesting things. One of the things that they got a lot of attention for is called AI Scientist. Mm-hmm. That's an automated research system that generated a paper that passed review, from the major authorities on scientific paper publishing, the first truly AI authored paper to do so. And then just this last month, their ALE agent was the coding agent that was the first one to win the major optimization programming contest. Optimization being one of the more difficult mathematical problems that you have with multiple variables. And you can imagine like, hey, optimize this factory floor, operation. And it's got to comprehend and then optimize for every one of the different interactions and transactions. That's the kind of contest that it won. And why isn't somebody like Gemini winning that one? Well, because Sakana has some secret sauce that Gemini is going to take advantage of. And Sakana will take advantage of Gemini's large transformers now. And there's going to be a collaboration between those two companies. Really, really important step for Sakana.
And so you named a lot of the stuff that I was going to say, so I won't repeat that, which is great. I'm glad we're all excited about this. The main thing I wanted to bring up was that the same gentleman, the one of the original 8 that's at Sakana, he famously said he's tired or bored of Transformers, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the main people who was on that paper, one of the 8. And then he's like, I don't think this is, I think it has a role to play in AGI, if I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's one of the parts of it. It's not the entire thing. Now, this mirrors what we see when we see people like Fei Li, who I want to talk about today, with world models and things like that, where there's more than just the transformer. And so, if you just go to Sakana, in fact, I'll put it in the chat here, but sakana.ai and then /blog, because if you just go to their homepage, it's very, very simple, and then they have a couple links there. But to your point, Andy, about the AI scientist, that came out a year and a half ago now, or at least next month it would be a year and a half ago, which, again, to Beth's point, in AI timelines, that's forever ago. So, they've been at this for a while. We've been impressed with them. I want to give, usually I say somebody else, and then Beth, you're like, it was me. I think it was Jimmy, but who brought Sakana to this show first? Was it Jimmy? I feel like
I don't know. I know it wasn't me.
I think it was Jimmy. Okay.
Let's go with Jimmy.
Okay. We'll give him credit. We'll ask him when we see him this week. I feel like he was the first one. He was like, there's this company, Sakana, because he kind of always was bringing in like the world, AI and stuff. And anyway, if you go to their website, they're not sitting. It's not like they did the AI scientists 2 years ago and they had this more recent stuff that Andy talked about. These are just some of their papers, some of their blogs, right? So you have from the 20th, which is 6 days ago, an unofficial guide to prepare for a research position application. Then you have a day before that, repo, language models with context repositioning, with some really cool animated graphs on there, which I love. A couple days before that, extending the context of pre-trained LLMs by dropping their positional embeddings. Digital Red Queen adversarial program evolution in core war with LLMs. Like, it's not your Sunday read per se, unless you just really get into this stuff. But if you want to see like sort of parts of the bleeding edge of AI, the way that some companies are thinking about where AI is going, there's many, I am sure. Sakana is one of them, right? I would definitely put them in. And so when I saw this news, I thought one of the things was like, is Google betting against itself? And I thought, God, no. And of course, the article was just using that as a hook. But one of the newsletters is no, absolutely not. This makes total sense. And the point was Google Transformers, right? This whole thing. Actually, it's very, very smart. I would definitely want to be collaborating with Sakana and what they're doing if I'm one of these major players, because Sakana gets some of the help of the Gemini models and probably unrestricted access that they need to do a lot of their research. And then obviously Gemini hopefully is getting to, or Google rather, is getting to benefit from the types of research, which are definitely, I think, Andy, you say kind of like out of the box thinking, right? They're not looking at everything straight on.
Well, there's something else that I just want to highlight that you said in that, because Sakana is still publishing papers. Sakana is a research lab that is sharing how to do what they did, right? None of the other research labs are publishing the papers anymore in the same like regularity. Hey, we did something cool. We want to let everybody know about it. This is how you can do it. But like, do the proof for us, right? Do it yourself and see if you can do it the same way. And that is part of what is so interesting about them, because all the other labs have stopped publishing with that kind of frequency, and it's really worked out for them.
Yes, I agree with you. And so I was just curious here, and here's the reason I just went down this. And Andy, I know you lived in Japan, so I was about to ask you, but I don't want to put you on the spot because I wasn't sure where your Japanese was in terms of knowledge. I wasn't sure.
So approximately 50 to 60 years ago. That's how old he is.
So not top notch, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps, but they have like their blogs are actually they have like really cool. Go to their blogs. I'll tell people. I won't even share it on screen. Go to their blog so you can go look at their images that they sometimes put on top of their very latest one. It is typically some sort of robotic fish, and so I was like, oh wait, does Sakana mean fish or something? The Japanese word sakana primarily means fish, a general term for all fish. Historically, sakana also referred to snacks or side dishes. I think we could assume he means fish. For whatever reason, they decided to name the company Sakana AI. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning there, but now that obviously makes sense because when you look at their cool their cool thumbnails, which are all like cartoonish. They're very cool. I like them. I just like the style of them. They're different. They're unique. But they almost always have some sort of robotic fish with like glasses on doing work and stuff like that. So I just another reason we kind of fanboy a little bit on Sakana, I think, but for good reason. They're doing really cool stuff, and like they're one of the ones that you could just see pushing AI forward, not sitting back in the chair and going, "Well, look at all this stuff." There always seem to be thinking differently about things. So I love reading their blogs, even when they're
Looking back to 2023, when we first started talking about Sakana, they weren't getting the big, like AI competition press, but they were doing unique things. And I think it's a validation of the signal that we were picking up about just how unusual this approach to evolutionary development of AI was. And now to have Google, who is arguably the leader now moving forward, they're taking share from OpenAI, and I have a graph I want to share here about that. And Google has distribution power plus the intellectual and scientific chops with Google DeepMind specifically, to move forward and to have them anoint Sakana now after all this time. I think it really validates the signal that we were picking up on.
It validates us because, as we've said, we know that all the great players listen to the show. And I think what it's saying is, there's people at DeepMind and Google listening, and they're like, listen, I don't know how many times we have to listen to the Daily AI show, Das Crew, talk about Sakana before we move on this. Somebody else is going to move on this. They brought it up again and again and again. I think it's time that we look at Sakana seriously about what they're doing. All kidding aside, one of the last things I'll say about them is I appreciate that when I go to their website, some, not all of their blogs are written in Japanese, and it's on me to translate them. I like that. I think that's the way it should be. I know, a lot of people are going to translate it to English because it's a common language or it's a well-known language around the world, but I don't mind the idea. It actually makes me smile a little bit when I see something that I really, really want to read. And the first thing I need to do is turn on Google Translate in order for me to actually read that blog because it's natively written in Japanese first. So cool stuff there for sure. Okay, I know we all talked. It was like we all had that on our bingo card for today.
Okay, well, so let me just weave off of Gemini working with Sakana to show you what Gemini is doing in the space. So blue is OpenAI, and by the way, this is just traffic to the cloud-based systems here. So this doesn't represent, for example, how extensively Claude is integrated into enterprise. For example, this is just about the way that consumers and others are pinging the AI servers that are generally available to the public. I believe that that's the case here. This is from SimilarWeb. And so you see what's interesting here is the orange, the dark orange section here that's growing just above the blue segments is that is Gemini. So Gemini is taking a larger and larger component of the generative AI tool traffic that you see growing from, goes back to August of last year. So, it's about a 6-month stretch here. And then it's quadrupled. Their share of that, or their volume has quadrupled, just visually speaking, as OpenAI's has dropped down. And by the way, this low bar here just before the 116 or January 16th segment stack is just the holiday period. People didn't use AI as much during the holiday period, and now it's bounced back as everybody's gone back to work. Take a look at, for example, Manus this is the dark green thing, Manus. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's DeepSeek. There's a lot. Anyway, Manus went down significantly here after Meta acquired them. And so that shows up in this data as well. And DeepSeek has also declined a little bit. That's the dark green one. And so, it had its heyday somewhere back in the middle of the year, and now it's dropped off, somewhat. Overall, this is global generative AI tool traffic. Anyway, I thought that was very interesting, and Gemini is definitely taking significant share away from OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm sorry, I was just going to mention on just the Manus, just small part of it. Carl shared with us that he was quoted, and I don't, everything crashed before this show, so you guys would have to tell me, but I saw that he was quoted, and basically what he was saying is, we don't really know what Manus is doing now that it's owned by Meta, and therefore we're no longer recommending it to our clients. And for anybody that knows Carl on this show knows how big of a statement that is, because he was definitely at 0 to 69 AI doing work with Manus, and it just goes to show what kind of impact that news can and obviously is having. So I just wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. And he has always been simultaneously a fan of GenSpark. And so he could easily just replace any Manus installations. I doubt they're going to do that actively, but 0 to 60 AI is now probably going to be recommending where a multi-tool agent is needed. And for ease of implementation, GenSpark is an alternative to Manus.
Right. I was surprised that he was recommending Manus at all, because I don't think he's talked about Manus on the show. He's only talked about GenSpark. So, but those are also, that's just like, maybe people don't know that. For us, we get a perspective of what Carl wants to use for himself, and then what he thinks is business ready. And in fact, he's on vacation in Mexico, and he set up a Claude Bot server, and again said this was fun, not production ready for businesses right now.
Yeah, so over the weekend, Claude Bot was all the rage, and I heard of it, I think, on Thursday or Friday, and now every newsletter has Claude Bot about it. But it really is it's a seminal implementation of localized AI assistant agents. So I'm sure you guys have lots to add about it. I'll be interested in hearing what you think about Claude Bot. I just asked Claude and Perplexity to give me a full set of instructions about how to set that up locally on a machine here. And I'll just say that what this is overall is a personalized, localized assistant that orchestrates multiple models. You can use multiple models or even a local model to keep it all private on your local machine. But to do it locally on a machine requires a killer machine, probably minimally with 64 gigabytes of memory, and a more than 12 core processor in order to run a large model on that, equivalent to what you can easily do with your existing subscriptions with ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and in concert with this local coordinating agent that's running on your system.
The other thing I was going to add to was, sorry, I think I apologize if I'm talking over you guys. I think it is because I have a delay, so I'm not meaning to do that. I apologize. The only thing I was going to say was, I want to make sure we keep clear, unless I'm wrong on this. Claude Bot is CLAUD BOT. This is not. I just want to confirm this is not anything released by Anthropic.
No.
Right.
Correct. Okay. I want to make sure, because Claude Bot sounds like, oh, Claude released another thing like Cowork. No.
This was designed and built by an Austrian engineer who is famous in the world of iOS applications. And what's distinct about this one is that the primary mode of communication with this assistant is through WhatsApp or Signal or Slack, right? And there's a few other systems. You can use Teams, for example, to be your primary channel of communication with this orchestrating agent that's running on your desktop or a local machine. It's not it works via your phone through iOS because this is an iOS expert who built that, but it's not something that you can easily host yourself with a full LLM running locally, but it is designed to do that. You can do it if you have a killer machine. But I asked Perplexity, okay, look, I've got an M4 Pro with 48 gigabytes and a 1 terabyte drive. Can I do a Claude Bot installation on that and run a model locally? It said, yes, you can, but you've got to stay down at the Llama kind of 7B level, Llama 3.3, for example, as the local open source model. And, if you tried to do anything large, you really need a 64 gigabyte memory machine to do that. But Claude Bot doesn't require you to run a local model. You can just it'll connect to any one of the models that you already have access to.
And I've seen other people talking about it, and it is in fact what Carl did. You can set it up on a virtual machine in the cloud and take advantage of that. And the main one and the one that he used is basically $5 a month for that cloud installation. But
interesting.
So
yeah, I didn't think about doing that.
The idea of both of these is that if it's on its own machine or it's on its own virtual installation, it's sandboxed because it's an autonomous thing. You're going to have it running. So you don't want it to attach to any of your information that's also happening on your regular computer, right? You want to be able to control it from, like, I only give you access to specific pieces, not, hey, you know more about how the computer functions than I do. Go. Don't do that, right? Like, that's why the virtual machine or its own thing. But there were a bunch of people buying Mac Minis this weekend. Yes.
I think this is like, maybe I saw Carl talk this, and you're right. This was Claude Bot. It went from like not even on my radar probably on Saturday, and now I feel like I've heard about it 10 times. And
yeah,
that's how things go in AI, right? And I was like, all right, what is this? And then I think Carl actually talking about it was first. I was like, I have no idea what Carl's talking about right now. I was just head down in my own world with Claude Code and not paying attention much to the world outside of football. And I think this is like one of those, like, go way back to like baby AGI or one of these things. I think it's a peek into the future of like how these systems work. And in that, it's very, very beneficial and helpful, because oftentimes with AI, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And it's hard to sometimes to connect the synapses and say, oh, I know exactly where this is going, because so much of this is so forward frontier that there's often not something super relatable. And so oftentimes when I'm talking about people in AI, you can tell that, I mean, these are very, very smart people who are, executives at companies and stuff. But as we're just talking, it's like, when I was just on site last week, I was talking to the CEO. We were just having a casual conversation about it. And it was just about what they're doing with their company, and they're doing amazing things with AI, but also internally we're doing AI. And it always just sort of comes back to like, well, where do we think this is going? Where do we think this connects? Claude Code obviously has been a huge conversation starter because of what it enables you to do with local files and things like that. And now Claude Bot or something like that in the future that sort of sits in between. Yeah, totally makes sense to me. I guess if there's, use cases for messaging it. I know it said it worked through like WhatsApp and you could text it or whatever your platform is. I think it's like sort of platform agnostic in terms of how you communicate. But I think what it does, nothing, everybody plays with it. It goes through the news cycle, whatever. But it's like, oh, okay, now we all collectively have this sort of new level of understanding of maybe the way these systems will be part of our day-to-day lives. I think that's what I took away from. Now I'm not deep into it. I haven't like tried it, or I don't have a Mac Mini sitting around. I don't have a little computer that I'm gonna go like do this. I'd be waiting on you to do it, Andy, with your maybe your old systems or something, or Carl, But I think it does, if nothing else. These are good conversations to have, even if it's not very good in itself. It still opens the conversation like we're having to, like, oh, what does this mean? And I get more excited about that. Like, what do we think this means now that we know this or have seen this in the wild? What do we think this means for future productivity? What do we think this means for business? What do we think this means for personal? And then I like to just think in my head, like, well, what does this mean to me if I have my phone in my hand and I'm out, I'm away from the house and I'm walking around? How would having this new feature help me? And I don't know that I have a great answer on that, but that's sort of where my brain goes with stories like this, as it does with other ones. I start to float up.
Let me in like two sentences capture
Sure.
what the import of this is, right? So this is going to be an AI that lives on your computer or on a server in your home. Basically, your computers are servers connected to that hub and so on, but that you command from your phone. So it's this persistent memory for you and your whole family. It's been designed in such a way that you can have multiple users in the same work group who have access to that with their own private partitions of the memory and data inside that. So you can imagine, I'm imagining now that I will use Claude Bot or something similar. I mean, I expect that ultimately Anthropic will create Claude Family, right? They did Claude Co-work. Now they're doing Claude Family. And so you'll have an instance of Claude Code. And by the way, this is not terribly different from Claude Code, with the exception of the fact that you interact with it largely by these phone messaging apps, as opposed to using the command line interface of the terminal or the Claude desktop app, which is what you have to do in order to use Claude Code. But this is an agent like Claude Code, and it has access to all your files, but privately, and locally, just like Claude Code does. And it can do those things. So it's open source, and so it doesn't cost you anything to do this. It's got this proactive push capability, so it'll send you daily briefings based on what it understands about you and your family. And they showed some examples, in some of the articles that I read about it, of, okay, let's have a common family calendar, and the kids can just use their phone and contact via WhatsApp or Slack and say, okay, what's the family schedule today? Tell me this and that. What's mom doing in the afternoon? Can I talk her into driving me here? And the agent then has access to all of that information that's being delivered into private repositories. But for certain things like the family calendar example, that assistant agent can interact with that.
So
I would hope that that's something that I'm going to get from Alexa Plus, right? I mean, honestly, what you sort of laid out, I mean, like, well, I would hope that's what Amazon is going after. Anyway.
Well, the difference there is, I've got Alexa Plus on my little Echo Dot here on my thing, but it's listening all the time, and I have no idea what's going on with that data. I'm not sure I'm going to give Alexa all that data that Amazon can then take advantage of, whereas Claude Bot is private, open source, locally hosted, with access to the most powerful models you could want.
And for all of you who are thinking this is a thing that you want to try, a message from Daniel Miesler on his X post, heads up, Claude Bot is an awesome project. Be sure to lock down your bots on chat services. Seeing a lot being set up to allow anyone by default. So that means that anyone with the bot username can send your AI instructions, because that's how it's going. So there's I'll put a link to his post in the community, and that gives instructions. You can also just tell Claude Bot to lock it down to only your username, and it's an easy fix. But I will also put the link in.
Listen, it's a good call out to anybody. It's Claude Code team. Watch what you're doing. watch what you're doing. You're playing with, frontier edge type things, and they're fun, and they're, people want to test them and stuff. But yeah, careful, because you may not fully understand, and ignorance will get you in trouble. Real quick with AI, even if that's, happy ignorance on it because you didn't care to know the difference, but it can get you in trouble pretty quick with it. Can I share a quick news story from my side?
Yeah, go.
So I'm going to try to share this on screen. Well, I'll talk about it first, just in case my computer's having issues today, or my internet. But want to talk about World Labs, which Dr. Fei Li started. They went from a 1 billion valuation potentially in 2024 to a 4 billion valuation. Why? Because they have recently released their API access. So you can get access to their world models. You can build 3D world models using either an online tool called Marbles. Yeah, Marble or Marbles. I think it's Marble, actually. Or you can actually go online and buy credits on their platform and in fact run a curl command and run a get or a post command, if you know what that is. If you don't, it's pretty easy to Google, and you can actually use the API to do this for you. You can also start with your own images and have it build off that build a 3D model based off of what it can see in an image. So if you imagine, like in this room, if I took a picture, this is a flat wall, but if I took a picture of a corner of the room, from back, that gives the model a lot to work with. You can also give it several images, sort of as almost like a inspiration board, if you will, that it will then use to do that. But you don't even have to do all of that. If you just want to go literally play with this model and understand why this is such a big deal, let me show you. And so let's go to here first. And if you're not watching us, that's fine. If you are, what you're seeing is what appears to be a studio kitchen type house. So this came off of a text prompt that I gave it after we started the show. So this was definitely less than 30 minutes. I would say it was within the last 10 minutes. I gave it a text prompt into Marble, which is their online platform. It's marble.worldlabs.ai, and you have to sign in. But other than that, I don't think in that particular case you have to trade any money. And I gave it a whatever came to top of my head, which was back when I was after college living in Orlando. I actually got an opportunity because a guy owned it and I was rooming with him. And it was like a 1950s style bungalow. If you've never gotten to see or be in a traditional Floridian bungalow, which is a 1-story house, typically flat and long from side to side, it's a unique experience. It's a certain style of architecture, and I just happen to really love it. It was on a lake, so it fit right in with the big old trees and everything else. So in my mind, for whatever reason, I wanted to do something architectural versus some made up world with, different animals, which you could do that too. I'll show you in a second. But I just put in a prompt that was like, give me a 1950 style bungalow, Floridian bungalow that's been updated and modernized inside. And as you can see here, I would say it built it in less than 5 minutes. I can 360, I can zoom in, I can zoom out. You're going to notice some things, like if you looked up at the ceiling fans, you'll notice some of them are missing, like maybe looks okay there. But if we looked at the one in the kitchen, I think it was missing, very sort of wonky looking, right? But just think about what the texture on the ceiling there, back out a little bit. We can see the bedroom off here to the side that it has on there. And this becomes, very, very powerful. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to zoom back down here. Very, very powerful when it comes to just trying to have ideas and then pretty quickly, within minutes, be able to visualize what that might look like. Obviously, Carl has talked about this a lot. But if you're in architecture, I happen to have a daughter who at least at 15 is putting interest that way. She likes interior design. She likes the idea of architecture. It's probably the one field I think I've heard her talk about more than any other at 15. Let's keep that in mind. But regardless, I can see how a tool like this would be extremely, extremely valuable. Now, do we already have things where you can trade out? I think one of the home sites, the Realtor or homes.com or whatever, you already can do things on AI like they're like magically remove the furniture to see the house open and then put back the furniture, which is huge because a lot of times people would say the old adage was if you're going to buy a new home or rent a new place, look up at the ceiling so you can actually get a true understanding of the size of the room, because furniture can greatly alter that, right? Your perception of things being clean, dirty, big, small, or otherwise. So obviously, architectural wise, you could do things like this. But if we go back to explore, you'll notice very quickly a lot of it also looks more like 3D gaming, which, by the way, is a huge area that they're playing in, as well as things like medical as well. So we could, it'll take a little bit to do it, but let me just, if I click on this one, I want you to see what it looks like when it's building. I actually think this is whether this is necessary or not, I think watching it come into focus is actually a cool little feature. And it's sort of this like orb glowing type, I don't know, call them marbles, I guess, as it's building the 3D world. Again, I don't know if that's something they just threw in to have you, so you have something to look at while it's building, but I actually think it's actually looks pretty cool. So we'll wait for that to load here in a second. And while we do that, I'll just switch over so you can see that, in fact, they do have their platform. It looks just like platforms for OpenAI's platform and several others. They've all taken a very similar, layout as far as what you will find on the left in terms of getting your API keys. Perplexity looks this way. The Claude looks this way. But you can create your API keys. You can add credits, API reference. This will literally tell you, like you can see in the quick start guides in the API reference, this will literally tell you what you have to put into those curl commands. How to give it your API key. It tells you how much credits cost. I want to say it's like 80 cents per 1,500 credits, and it gives you some conversions, because you would imagine like building 3D worlds may not sound super cheap. So, you might want to look into that. But I think this is very cool. It makes sense to me why their valuation has gone up. I mean, yes, we're seeing a lot of bubble and stuff like that as well. And here's our model. Again, it's not like hyper realistic. It's more, I guess, like you would find in a game maybe. But this is just one of the examples they had. And again, we can move all around. And I haven't even played with the stuff below it. Studio, open a new project. It looks like I could do some editing. I'm not quite sure. Reuse the prompt, download it, record the footage. Oh, that's very cool. So you could do like drone fly-throughs and stuff like that by recording the footage. That'd be super cool. Download. Over here on the side, you have open in a world in VR. So if you have VR headset, there's ways that you can open this probably directly. I don't know how you would do that exactly. I don't have a VR headset, but view this as if you're standing in the room. And it looks like you have some other information on here as well. So go play with it. Go to marble.worldlabs.ai. Yes, you have to trade an email and log in for it, but you can go see what it's all about and see why this world modeling is such a big deal.
Nice. All right, I have a share. Let's look at this. This is going back to February of 2022, the year-over-year change in the number of iOS apps released. And you see that between February 2022 and pretty much, February of 2025 last year, things, with a few exceptions of months above the line, it was less each year. It was going down. And then, boom, now it's 60% up over the prior year in the month of December 2025. Why is that? Well, you might have seen advertisements, and I see them on social media, for Replit saying now you can build an iOS app and push it to the app store on Apple using Replit. And so this is assumed to be what's happening to app development as a result of vibe coding apps like Replit. And Replit's not the only one that will allow you to do that, but they've tried to smooth the path for people who are non-technical so that you can actually go through the review and approval process right from the Replit console. Replit, if you don't recall, Replit is like Lovable, but has a slightly different, architecture and support framework, and has, been around for longer than Lovable, and is nonetheless, rapidly becoming just as easy for non-technical users to develop applications, and now for mobile particularly. And you can see that in the iOS App Store traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Replit is like Lovable's nerdy cousin and wasn't actually like Lovable until more recently, right? So there's some conversation. Greg said he's beginning to think that the waves, where did that go? Yes. I'm beginning to think that the waves of social media attention is the result of a big marketing budget. And that could be also, if we remember McKay Wrigley, I believe he set up God Computer or something like that early on. He actually put Claude Code on a Mac Mini in July and called it Claude Pewter. So it could be that it just takes a little while for an idea to gestate, and then boom, it all explodes. But yeah, he was having fun this weekend on X saying, people don't listen.
Well, look, how is it any different than like Claude Bot, right? Where you have those early adopters, and you have them either using Claude Code 6 months ago, and I remember when that came out and it was like Claude can now do this computer use type stuff, whatever. And I was like, I think I'll wait and see. But you have the early adopters who are crushing it and they're building all sorts of amazing things. They're way out ahead of the curve, but they're also taking the most risk. Maybe they have the ability to do that. They have the financial stability to do that. Not everybody does. So sometimes that there's that delay because it does take that long for it to be vetted, for people to feel like it's trustworthy. I mean, hey, look at AI's, adoption rate in general, which was another news story, which is basically still like only 50% of people are even touching AI at all in work. However, those who work remotely, were tracking the highest at like 66%, which doesn't surprise me at all. People who work remotely like myself, whose coworkers are spread out across the country and in different pockets and stuff like that. Obviously I love AI and I do the show and stuff, but even if I wasn't, I think it's much more likely that you would try to find AI solutions that work for you in remote work and so on and so forth. So it doesn't surprise me. My point to it is, though, think about how many people you, me, any of you guys, any of us have talked to in the last 3 months or so who are now just getting on board with, hey, do you think it's okay? This is a question I had last week. We have ChatGPT Enterprise. Do you think our data is being trained on? And I said, well, look, I guess the answer is I never really know. I'm not the one pushing the buttons, but I can tell you that, SOC 2 compliance is a serious thing. I can tell you that I have personally not seen news stories of where some company has said, hey, we use ChatGPT Enterprise and we think somebody else was able to see our proprietary data or whatever, something we wanted locked down. I said, I can tell you that, wow, would that be a big risk for OpenAI to lie about, or any of the major companies? And why would you want that kind of, business suicide to say something's locked down only to be called out as a liar? I mean, we've seen this before, but why would you want to risk that when these companies are, most of them, not Anthropic maybe, but a lot of them are still, heavy debt spending and still looking for how they're going to make that next buck. So I said, look, I was having a conversation with an executive and I was like, look, I suppose I can't sit here and tell you with full confidence. I can tell you everything I can see, everything I've been tracking and how I do this. And ultimately it does have to be your decision on whether you feel confident that your company should be using a tool like this. I said, but I think it's the same conversation you had when you used Salesforce or when you used others. And it's just, do they have the history that suggests that they're doing things right? And so, yeah, we've known that these tools can do all this stuff for a long time, but it's not surprising to me that executives of companies are just now saying, hey, do you see anything that would make me that I should be suspicious about based on this particular tool? Because they're in that 6 month, 1 year lag of wait and see. They're not willing to roll the dice with their own data and find out later if it was actually trained on it because OpenAI was lying. And by the way, I do not believe that to be the case. At least this is my Brian opinion, whether I'm right or wrong. So anyway, I just want to bring that up because I feel like, yes, we see this. Greg, I hear you. We see these sort of like, the social media push and stuff like that, but it also totally makes sense to me why people opt to move slow, because there's a lot riding on it. And you wouldn't want to find out 6 months down the road you moved a little too quick with your own company's, proprietary data.
So I think you were right in the beginning of the show to make the distinction between Claude Bot and Claude, spelled differently, different companies. I think one of the reasons that Claude Bot hit is because Claude Code has been getting so much play,
Yeah.
and it has the word code in it. So people are like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
Claude Bot sounded nicer, right? Like, I honestly think that that's part of why it hit so big, and people who've been waiting felt like this was okay. I'm going to move on this one. That's why I moved really hard on Claude Code last weekend. Same sort of thing for me, right? I have time, and I'm really gonna. And yes, I have it installed on every computer I have. I have a personal Git so that I can have my other iterations of myself communicating with all versions.
Look, same.
My bug. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Beth. Same. It's like, why did I only get serious about Claude Code a little less than 2 weeks ago? I can't say for sure. I can't say why I didn't maybe adopt it 2 months ago, whatever. It certainly was there for me. Maybe it was Carl talking about it. I'm sure it was the show and people talking about it, but it became apparent to me after seeing, I guess, enough examples that I could wrap my brain around and go, I think this has usefulness for me, that's step one, right? Do I think this would even be useful for me? Because why am I going to go learn and play with a new tool and go through some of the extra steps and maybe a VS Code or Cursor or otherwise to get it running? Because I might need to know a thing or two for that. Even though, Beth, you pointed out it's not particularly hard, but I told you myself I had a hard time with it, and everything I've done since then has been in the desktop version. Perfectly happy with it. Haven't found a reason why I wouldn't want to be in the desktop version. Knowing full blown that I'm giving up some creative control, some finite control, but that's also the reason all my folks, all the people in my house use iOS devices. Because not because I don't think Android is better. I'm the guy who pull out speaker systems in my car when I was a kid. And I love that, right? I'll try this. I'll try that. I'll try this sub amp. I like tinkering, right? But at some point you have to go, well, what's the return on investment for me looking into this? If it's just going to be something fun, if it's fun and you want to do it for fun, go for it. You don't really need an ROI on that. But I do if I'm going to go invest in some other people in my house having Androids and how that negatively would impact me trying to get that spun up. And so I don't. Knowing full blown, I'm giving up some creative control. I fully accept that. It's just a trade-off, right? And that's the way I feel about Claude Desktop as of right now, because I haven't hit that wall. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny how things just become all of a sudden important. All of a sudden it's kind of there, and then it's everywhere. And
right.
And now admittedly I have not done it yet because I haven't moved into this new role. I'm still working through the backlog of my old role at Scaled. But when I move into the role, one of the first things I'm going to do is get Scaled to pay $200 a month, because it'll be the cheapest money they ever spent, to give me Claude as an assistant so I can use Claude Code to build the new systems and transcript, or not transcripts, but templates and the things I need to do to help scale, which is part of my new role, and as well as QA. I'm building that from scratch. I'm going to use Claude Code, and I'm going to set up my PRDs. I'm going to try to do it right. I'm going to learn from my past experiences, and I'm going to move much faster because of it.
So one of the things that happened over the weekend, I think actually it happened on Friday, was Claude Code shifted from a to-do list, right? You create individual to-dos to tasks. And the idea behind that is also that you can string more complex things together. So yes, absolutely.
Desktop those to-dos. That might be something that I don't get. It's possible.
I think code still showed to-dos also when I was looking at it. I think it's shifted
It's rolling.
internally.
Yeah. I wonder if it rolls if you're in a project. I'd be interested. If I haven't really, I've only literally only started one project, and I'm now on my 6th chat, which I like seeing lined up on the left-hand side. And what I feel like I need to do is, Ethan Malik has created like visualizations of Claude working. I thought that was a really cool idea. I need a visualization that just sort of sits and runs locally, like just as an animation. And it's got to be a cartoon or something silly. And it's got to start out as a cartoon, being able to manage very casually, like maybe it's a robotic fish. It's a Sakana, chilling out on the beach. And I look over and I go, we're on chill on the beach mode, and it's sipping a Mai Tai. We're good with context here. And then as I realize that Claude Code is starting to struggle with memory, my computer resources, it starts to like bake in the sun. It starts to have a problem. And so that I keep looking at this cartoon going, oh, we're getting critically close. Like the cartoon is now like, what am I thinking of? I Love Lucy with the chocolates, the famous chocolate scene where they can't keep up and they're stuffing them in their mouths. Her and,
Yep.
Lucy and who's her friend?
Desi Arnaz, you mean?
Or the other woman, the other.
Isn't it Betty?
That's going to drive me nuts. Anyway, irrelevant to the story.
If you know.
Put it in the chat. Lucy's. What's the other? What's the other couple? What's their names?
Ethel.
Ethel. Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm in path with that one. See, we don't have that much of a lag on the show. Greg was in there in seconds. Thank you, Ethel. He would capitalize for us, thank you. Anyway, that's what I need to stop really quick and get Claude Code to build me a visualization of Claude Code starting to scream at me, because I had a moment over the weekend where not only did Claude Code start screaming at me, it started to go real Matrix-like and start writing words over words. And I was like, this can't be good. And then I was like, well, I'll just shut down Claude Code. Well, it turned out my whole laptop, which admittedly is just a Microsoft like laptop. It's not a powerhouse by any means. It's just a laptop. It was clear that I attacked the entire system. And so everything was just like, I was just watching my computer like implode in front of me. It was like shutting down PowerShells. I looked and I had 7 PowerShells up, and I was like, that's probably not a good idea. So I was shutting down PowerShells to the point where I finally had to do a full restart, reboot, everything just to get anything to like kind of work. So yeah, I need to do more backups more frequently to the GitHub, the repo, so that I don't keep running into these issues on it. So anyway.
Yep. And it's funny. So I was talking to Carl about his setup, and that I think he's using Cursor. And one of the things that was said early on when I was looking at Claude Code was use the terminal, the CLI tool, because it takes less memory. And Carl's like, oh yeah, no, I don't have a problem with memory. I was like, what's your laptop, bud? And he's like, oh, I have 64 gigs of RAM. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I don't. Right? Like that's not a common configuration for most people.
So here's the irony, right? I literally started Claude Code on the other laptop. The laptop I'm talking to you guys on is very powerful. It would never skip a beat. It's got the 64 and the stuff. It's like a low tier gaming, because I've always done that with AI. But the reality is I don't want to sit here in this room. This is my work room. And so mentally, I feel like I'm still at scaled when I'm in here sometimes. And so I've been passively watching TV and football this weekend, at least yesterday. I was watching the 2 championship games and Claude coding my way along it. But it's gotten so bad because I've been working on this project and really just biting down on it, that if Amanda, my wife, comes in the room and I don't literally have the laptop on my lap, which I bought a stand to help it cool better. That was one of my first purchases. She goes, oh, it's Claude timed you out again. Are you in timeout? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, that's a good thing. Maybe get up, walk around. I'm like, yeah, it'll be back. And she's like, yeah, when? I'm like, at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. I'll be able to go and continue to work on Claude Code. Oh man, she's like, I feel like it's telling you something. Maybe get out. Go explore the world. And here in Florida, at least, it's getting cold. But over the weekend, we had 80. I was at the beach. My daughter got a sunburn on Saturday. That's the weather we had. So like drastically different than the rest of the country. So it was very beautiful this whole weekend here. Now it's getting cold.
All right, I have a feel good story here about the education of the next generations with AI, and that is Stanford AI for all. So Stanford, they have a thing called Stanford Pre-Collegiate Studies that's been around for some time apparently, and so this is aimed at high school students, and this program now is being made available through Stanford HAI, and there's a link to that sort of thing. And so if you're a ninth grader right now, so just going into high school, you can apply to a program that's hosted by Stanford where you can do AI hands-on research projects with mentorship from Stanford researchers. Think PhD students at Stanford will be helping these ninth grade students. And that can be done online to a much larger audience, but there's also going to be a residential summer program available to those who are ninth graders. And I'm sure that over time, if this is successful, Stanford and many other institutions will expand these programs to really do intensive training in the important hands-on practical skills of using AI. And this is really a feel-good thing for me because when I was in high school, I was in a Department of Defense high school in Japan, and it was, let's say, not the most high quality academic institution, but a counselor there brought my father in and said, Andy has aptitude. And so I recommend that you send him to a summer enrichment program stateside. And so I, on two different successive summers after my junior year and after my senior year, when I had graduated and was going to go on to Dartmouth, I went to the Phillips Exeter Academy summer program. It's an 8-week program in Exeter, New Hampshire, at this very, more prestigious, high school that, the wealthy, Boston Brahmins send their kids to or whatever. Anyway, that was really an eye opener for me. And I think this program from Stanford online and or in the residential summer program is going to be similar for a whole new generation of people. And I hope that this kernel that Stanford's putting out there spreads. This is the kind of thing that we have to do collectively in society in order to take best advantage of the tool set that AI represents.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. Yeah, this is a yes and. Yes, and I love all of that, right? My daughter's a ninth grader, so you could imagine this spoke to me when I happened to see this earlier today. And it's over the summer. You only have to be a ninth grader when you apply, because technically in the summer, my daughter is between freshman and sophomore year. Two things that I want to just add to this. Number one, not free, not close. It is like a 2-week program. It's like a 2-week intensive there every day program, whether you're there online or whether your attendance is mandatory, however you want to look at that. The virtual side of it is roughly $4,500 and the in-person is over $9,000. That's Stanford prices, right? So like, I don't have a problem with that. Like I could make a case, they can make a case for why 4,500 is absolutely correct. I'm not here to argue that, because a 2-week intensive, they basically put you in, you apply. So you could do robotics, medical, LLMs, and there's a fourth one, and I cannot think of what it is, but those are 3 of the 4 that you can go into these sort of specialties, right? I love all of this. The price is prohibitive for a lot of people, certainly puts it out of range for me and my family and my daughter, unfortunately, because I love the idea. And I was getting very close to voluntold. She was voluntold, not asking politely, but also telling her she was going to do it in the summertime. Unfortunately, the price. But here's the other thing, Andy, that I don't love. Okay, you have a 2-week intensive that's got $4,500 or whatever. How come there's no dual enrollment? How come there's no college credit equivalency. My daughter is a ninth grader, can take dual enrollment right now. She can get college credits all day long as a ninth grader. She could have done it 3 years ago if she had qualified. So it's not bad. She's certainly of the age of 15 or 16 where she can get college credit. So if you're going to do something like this, and you're gonna charge what you're charging. Again, not saying it's not worth it or that the value of what they'll teach you isn't worth it, but put a little skin in the game. Put and doing so will get you 2 college credits or 1 college credit or something. That's also very important to somebody like my daughter, who over the next 3 years is sort of putting together that portfolio. Hey, saying she went through this Stanford program could give her a leg up. We don't know. But I mean, as a parent, I didn't see anything that told you specifically that they would get any sort of dual enrollment credit. I understand it's just a 2-week intensive. That's very short for college credit, but I was surprised that there was nothing about that. So that's my feedback on it. Although I think it's very cool, and I happen to have a daughter that's exactly the age of what they're looking for, and I think she would do amazing in it. It's prohibitively expensive. So,
Well, the online program may not be so expensive
it's 4,500.
to do the online one.
Yes.
Mentorship.
And then the in-person 9K. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It's like a 10-day 4,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, I looked it up because I saw exactly what you thought. I thought, ooh, that's ringing some bells for me. I would, my daughter doesn't want to hear or learn AI from me unless it's going to make her money, unless it's going to be a job for her or whatever. She doesn't want to hear from me, but I'm more than happy to put her in front of other people who can teach her different things or whatever. And anyway, very cool. But I think it's going to leave a lot of people out, unfortunately, who don't have the financial means to afford something like that. But, maybe to your point, Andy, if this is successful at this higher tier, sometimes these things come out at these higher price points, but they are successful and they do make their way down because they have proven successful. So maybe in 2-3 years, we are seeing something that's more in a $1,500 range where me and my wife could actually have a conversation about it, or something like that. So could still be positive.
Yeah, countervailing that whole, sort of elite high cost approach to those things. Increasingly now, there are, free online university courses. So
Yep.
not for the high school kids, but for university level courses, you can pretty much go to MIT for free if
Yep.
you want to. And but they also have for professional development, they have very expensive programs where you're basically doing a video learning management system experience, which is what I did at the start of AI. I did the course from MIT Expro called Designing and Building AI Applications. And that was a really well-structured approach to understanding from A to Z everything that has to go behind, the understandings of AI. And it was a really good foundation for me to understand it because, while I've been involved in technology on the interwebs for some time, I just really didn't have any experience directly with using AI or studying it. And so that was useful. And that costs money, but I think you can get the same thing right now. What? No,
So I just put up a comment because Greg posted, I swear one day Andy is going to say I was on the Apollo missions, went to the moon one summer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it'll come out casually, right? It'll be part of another set story that Andy is telling, and it'll be a side note. Basically, Andy is Homer Simpson. Not
I think of myself as Forrest Gump. I was there when the other things were happening, and that's about
right,
it.
right. Well, the joke. What I mean by Homer Simpson is not the doting Homer Simpson. I mean that Homer Simpson has the whole joke of it is he's had way too many experiences. He has gone to the moon and he gets wrapped up into things. So I mean it in that sense that yeah. But anyway, Greg, I agree with you. It's always fun when Andy trickles out another very cool, interesting, Renaissance man experience that he has is always very, very cool. I can't hold a candle to it, so it's fun.
all right.
We good? Wrap?
Yeah,
We're good. Go ahead and wrap it, Brian.
Oh, you want me to wrap it? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, come back for the rest of the week. I mean, what is it? It's Monday, right? So we got 4 more days of shows all this week. Come back, hang out with us. We got different people coming in and out of the door. So should be a good one. Today was a fun conversation. I'm sure we'll have 4 more this week. So thanks everybody in the comments, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Till then, bye.